What's up, everybody? My name is Gilbert Church. I'm a high school strength and conditioning coach. I'm a PE teacher in Harlem, and today we're going to be talking about how to increase your appetite. Now, this is a classic dilemma for the skinny kid trying to put on muscle. I know because I was one. One of the biggest things that you run into when you're trying to hold a calorie surplus is you get full, like painfully full, like ouch, every single time that you try and take an extra bite of whatever it is you're eating. Hopefully by now you understand that when you're trying to put on muscle, you need to eat a large quantity of highly nutritious foods. And part of the problem with eating highly nutritious foods is that they're very filling. Potatoes, filling. Lean proteins, filling. Vegetables can fill you up. And the problem with those filling foods is they're not exactly high calorie. Chicken breast is not a high calorie food. Lean meats and vegetables are not high calorie foods. Heck, even potatoes, yeah, they're considered dense, but if they're not deep fried or covered in fat or something like that, they're not particularly all that calorie dense. Which means if you're doing this right and you're eating a lot of food and you're not trying to put on too much excess fat, you're gonna have to eat a lot of those foods. And again, the problem you run into is that you get full and it makes this journey particularly painful. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, there's not like a foolproof way to just say, hey, I'm gonna be hungry all the time. If I do these magic tricks, I'm gonna pick up my appetite and I'll be ready to eat no matter what. Woo! But there are some things you can do to make this journey a little bit easier as opposed to force feeding yourself spoonful after spoonful and eventually getting to the point where you just may not want to finish your calories for the day. So I'm going to tell you a couple personal stories about some of the troubles I had doing this, and then I'm going to start sharing some tips about how I started slowly increasing my appetite and making this journey a whole lot easier. Let's start talking about it. All right, so it's personal story time. Rewind the clocks back to 2013. I'm about 155, maybe 160 pounds soaking wet. I just walked into CrossFit in Norwalk. I meet Mike Sabato. I start lifting weights. I get introduced to technique. I get introduced to squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, snatching, clean and jerking, all things that are good and that feed the soul. And I run into an issue. I am struggling to gain weight. And I'm training really hard and I'm working really hard, and that of course leads me to ask my friends and family and anyone who knows anything about training, what should I do to gain weight? And the obvious answer was, dude, you gotta eat. You gotta eat some calories. You gotta step up your game on the nutrition side of things. And so originally I came in with all good intentions. I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and do this as cleanly as possible. I'm gonna do this with lean meats. I'm gonna do this with vegetables. I'm gonna do this with rice and potatoes. And I ran into a wall, hard wall. I would get halfway through a meal and I would just be struggling to finish it. Didn't matter what day it was, didn't matter what meal it was. Even breakfast, I was starting to wake up full. And I was just running into a lot of trouble finishing my meals, which led to one of the first idiotic things I started doing in order to gain weight and sort of bypass my own appetite. And this is not recommended. I'm just telling you what I did for humor's sake, basically. But this is a pot. I have an emotional attachment to this pot. Probably about 7 years ago, when I started this whole thing, or when I was really trying to gain weight, what I would do is cook up a huge pot of rice. I'd fill this thing to the brim. It was probably like 2 cups dry. We're probably like 300 grams of carbohydrates in this thing. I'd take an olive oil bottle and I'd just do like a 10-second pour in there, 10 seconds, and then I'd salt it and pepper it and mix it all up, and then I'd try and eat as much of it as I could as fast as I could. And whatever I didn't get through, I would bring this pot, literally the pot, to the gym because I was like, nah, I'm not gonna make another dish. That's ridiculous. I'm just gonna keep it in the pot and then wash it and do the same thing the next day. And I would work out and then walk around with this pot, take a couple bites of rice, keep on working out, and pretty stupid, got pretty fat. Yeah, that definitely happened. But I'm a little bit proud of myself for just the idiocy of it and the determination, but definitely not the way to go about it. And there's way more intelligent ways to put on muscle and sort of bypass your appetite as opposed to just stuffing your face with carbohydrates doused in fat. But anyway, that's my pot story. some of the people at the gym who are watching this right now. I hope you guys remember that. The second thing I did was start the seafood diet. Like any kid, this is not unique, and this isn't unique like the pot story at least, but I just started eating whenever I could. And this had some benefits in terms of I definitely was in a caloric surplus, right? I was crushing pizza. I was crushing all-you-can-eat sushi as much as I could. There's one great story where me and a couple of the guys from the gym went to all-you-can-eat sushi, and we went a death by sushi piece. So one guy would eat a piece of sushi, you'd have 10 seconds to finish that piece of sushi, and then the next guy would pull, and then every 10 seconds, one guy would have one piece of sushi, and we kept going around the table until someone folded. And we slowly eliminated guys, and it was brutal. It was hilarious, but it was brutal. And we had one guy like just stuffing his face with like 5 pieces of sushi until he just couldn't hold it in his cheeks anymore. And blah! And it was great. It was terrible. It was great. Terrible. Whatever. But again, the seafood diet, while it definitely got me a caloric surplus, it definitely was like aiding somewhat in training, was not the smartest way to do that. And again, if you haven't picked up on seafood diet being you see the food and then you eat the food, keep up. I even gave you the spelling there, okay? There are more intelligent ways to go about this. And again, this is why prior videos have gone over measuring out the macros that you need, keeping track of the foods that you have. And I'm always going to push and say that even if you're trying to gain weight, you should be having highly nutritious foods. You should be trying to have plenty of lean protein in your diet. If you're gonna add fat in there, it should be from olive oil, avocado, or possibly like something like a ribeye if you need a high fat day, which generally most people don't. If they're training hard, they need to rely on carbohydrate. But yeah, these are 2 stories that I have where I tried to sort of bypass my appetite because when I was having highly nutritious foods, I was really struggling. But again, I don't think it's worth it in the long run because it leads to this excessive weight gain, and then you've got to pull the dial back and sort of undo that damage that you've done. And now I'm in the process of trying to do this right, and this is sort of the message that I want to push out to you. Highly nutritious foods, lean proteins, definitely get your vegetables in, and now let's talk about how to eat those in enough quantity so you can put on muscle and not a lot of fat, and do it in a, you're going to be full, but not in a painful manner. So let's talk about it. All right, without further ado, here are some tips for increasing your appetite. Number 1, salt your food. I've talked about salt and the importance of it before, but do a little experiment right now. Have a bowl of rice. Eat it and have nothing on it. Now, have another bowl of rice. Eat it, but sprinkle some salt on it. Tell me which one is more appetizing. Tell me which one is more easy to eat. Tell me which one you finish faster. Guarantee it's going to be the salt every time. A piece of chicken with 0 salt on it is disgusting. Chicken with some salt on it and probably some pepper, some seasonings on it, it's going to make it more appetizing, right? If it's more appetizing, it's easier to eat. If it's easier to eat, it goes down quicker. Salt is a great way to make your food appetizing and easy to eat. Part of the reason I emphasize it so much is because I grew up in a household where my mom was always like, less fat, less salt. Less fat, less salt, less sugar. And that stuck with me for a while. So I was trying to do a gain or a bulk without putting salt on my food. When I learned that salt actually wasn't the nutritional kamikaze that everyone had me thought it was, that was huge. It was great. I started adding salt to everything and became much easier to eat food. Number 2, keep your food hot, right? Hot food is easier to eat than cold food. I used to be the soldier that would meal prep at the beginning of the week, have it in my fridge, and then I'd just take it out of my fridge and eat it, or I'd bring it to work with me and take it out of the fridge and eat it. I'd skip the microwave part because I figured, whatever, I'm just gonna eat this. It's calories, I don't really care about the taste. And it turns out hot food just tends to taste better than cold food and is easier to consume. And again, when we're on the bulk, we're interested in trying to make things easy to consume because you're going to be consuming food a lot of the time. In my prior video, I showed you that I put chicken stock in a lot of my foods just so I could keep it moist. So when I put it in the microwave, it would come out hot, it would come out steaming, and it makes it a lot easier to eat. Number 3, Fresh food. I cook every morning. I used to not cook every morning. I wanted to be lazy. Trust me, I want this process to be as convenient as possible. Like I said, I used to meal prep every single Sunday for the entire week. The problem was when I would take that Thursday and Friday meal out of the refrigerator, it just didn't taste the same. It just was rough to eat. Even if I salted it, even if I had it hot right out of the microwave, it just didn't taste as good and it was difficult to finish. Whereas if I cook it in the morning, it's pretty much good throughout the day and I'll always freshly prepare my dinner at night. That just made a huge difference. Now it's a lot more time out of my day, but in terms of not struggling through a meal and just getting it done and getting the calories and the macronutrients that I need, that was a huge game changer for me. Cook your food, make it fresh, get it into a routine, make it a habit. It's worth your time. It makes consuming calories way easier. Number 4, eat at the same time. So what I mean by that is every single day, eat at the same time every single day. It turns out you can pretty much train your metabolism or your body to know when to expect a meal. So if you eat at 6 a.m. every single day, and then at 9 a.m., and then at 12, and then at 3, and then at 6, in those 3-hour increments, your body will begin to expect to have meals at 6, 9, 12, 3, and 6. And you'll actually start to feel a little hungry around those times if you start getting behind that time zone. It's not necessarily that your body needs the calories, because again, you're in a calorie surplus, but you can train your body to expect calories. And again, when you have that set schedule and that set routine, it makes it easier to consume. So you are not battling your own appetite and feeling a fullness the entire time. Number 5, this one took a lot of time before I truly understood it, but increase your caloric surplus gradually. So back in December, I slowly, or even before that, back in November, December-ish, I started slowly adding back in calories after a pretty sizable cut. I lost 20 pounds. And the way I did it was I added 1/4 cup of dry rice to my diet every single day for 1 week. And then the next week, I would add another 1/4 cup of dry rice. Right, so 1/4 cup of dry rice for the jasmine rice that I get from Costco is 180 calories. So I added 180 calories every single day for 1 week. And then I would add another 180 calories. And then the next week, another 180 calories. And let me tell you, through this method, it wasn't that hard to consume, right? It was pretty easy to make that adjustment. Adding in those calories was not this brutal step that I had to take, as opposed to in the past where I would see that, oh my gosh, I need to consume around 3,600 calories a day. I'm only eating around 2,500. Let me just add 1,000 calories the very next day and try and follow through on that. Brutal. Your body's not ready for it. It's way easier to train your body in small baby steps to consume a little bit more food. It's in fact a lot like weightlifting and a lot like those adaptations in the weight room where gradual progress is really, really sustainable, whereas immediate volume and immediate eating is a lot more hard to maintain, and it's just not worth it. Take the easy step, increase gradually. And then finally, this was kind of a cool trick I learned from Stan Efferding, but fructose with each meal. Fructose is just sugar from fruits for the most part, and I've been doing it in a form with orange juice. I will caution you, don't have a glass of orange juice with every single meal. That's a great way to just overload on carbohydrate. But I'd have like a 1/4 cup of OJ, or I'd have an orange, or a little bit of pineapple, kiwi if I'm feeling, a little fancy or something like that. But a little bit of fructose with each meal has a tendency to make you absorb it faster. There's some good science to say that it stimulates the liver and makes your absorption of the nutrients and calories a little bit easier. And again, when I started doing this, it stimulated my appetite. Made me feel a little bit hungrier, a little bit more excited for the next meal. Whew. So, with that said, those are 6 tips for increasing your appetite. They've been game-changing for me, especially while I've been on the bulk trying to add in more calories. And if you are on this journey where you are just learning and seeing the numbers and truly measuring out how much you actually need to eat in order to gain muscle, I really think that these tips are going to be helpful in helping you accomplish that journey. So, hope that was helpful. Hope you really enjoyed it. And as always, if you made it to the end of the video, like and subscribe and check out these socks! Bacon, eggs, they're awesome. See you next week.